All set?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, man.
Talking some
Are we
ball.
doing video or just audio?
So this goes right to YouTube, and then I record the audio into Audition. So like one lives on YouTube, and then the other just goes to the streaming platforms.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, exactly. So be on your wits. 1, 2, 3. All right. We now welcome on a very special guest. We're doing something a little bit different today. It is Dave Ruff from Washed Media. Dave, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on, Jake.
Absolutely. Love talking ball. First things first, I mentioned Washed at the top there. In my opinion, you guys are like one of the funnier collections of people on the internet right now. I probably stumbled onto you at this time like a year ago. How would you like briefly sum up what you guys are doing to our audience?
Great question. Well, first of all, thank you for your business. The three of us, Will DeFreeze, Dylan Chevery, and myself, we all worked together at a company called Grandex that had a host of digital media platforms or outlets and whatnot, podcasts. And we had a podcast together on there called Touching Base. And when that kind of fell apart, we left and we started our own deal. And we're just three guys who have really good chemistry. We don't really know a whole lot about anything, but like we could, some people like it. We can make it funny. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. We hired a couple guys. We've got Randy doing the video stuff and Brett doing the business development. Brett came from Barstool, and yeah, I mean, I think everybody's pretty funny in their own right.
I definitely agree with that. It's a funny thing where like I don't know how to explain you guys to people. I didn't even really get it myself at first. I think you guys hiring Brett as a Barstool fan was part of what brought me over to it, and then you jumping on that Entourage podcast too a little bit last summer. But it's just a funny thing. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but you guys are just really funny. You got great chemistry. My brother's now super into it. A couple of my friends. So, yeah, happy to spread your business around to as many people as I can here.
Well, I really appreciate that. It's been really fun. We've got some new stuff we just launched. Sports podcast called Too Much Dip, and yeah, we're just mixing it up, trying to keep it fresh. Maybe trying to get a little bit younger at certain positions. But you know, it's been good so far.
Good stuff. I mean, so we're both doing media work, obviously in different capacities. For me, it's like a side gig right now. You've managed to find that sweet spot where it's your full-time career. I know you kind of just touched on it there, but like, what is the full, like, fleshed out background on it of you getting to that point, I guess?
Wow. Man, it's a really weird story. So after college, I worked in like technical recruiting in Fort Worth for like a couple years, and then like the market crashed. I'm old. I'm significantly older than you, I assume. Market crashed, lost my job, got laid off with like a third of my office, and I kind of just drifted at my parents' house for like 6 months, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I had taken the LSAT my last year of college, did okay on it, not great. Had that though, and I applied to some law schools. That was kind of the plan, you know, going into college and even after college. And then went to law school, practiced law like in traditional law firms for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And some of my buddies from college had started a website called TotalFratMove.com. That's owned by the company I referenced earlier, Grandex. And they were doing that while I was in law school. And I was pretty close with them at the time. And we always kept in touch. And I started something called postgradproblems.com. I actually first started it as a Twitter account at postgradproblems on Twitter. I have no affiliation with it anymore, but I started the Twitter account. They kind of helped me grow it. Next thing you know, we launched like a full content site. We hired some people to, do freelance work and to run the site. And then I made the full switch from content when I was living in Lubbock, moved to Austin. They wanted to bring me in as their in-house counsel and also to run the website. So it's kind of a really, really weird role I was in. But from there, we just kind of were experimenting with different kinds of content. And we did like a podcast. I wasn't even supposed to be on it. It was just kind of a recap of like an EDM cruise that Dylan and Will went on for the company. Long story. You don't care about that. But anyway, I was on there. We had good chemistry and we kept doing it. And then eventually we monetized it. And now I'm doing it full time and really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's cool. And like I said, you guys have this like pretty interesting engaged fan base. I don't know if I've really seen anything like it. Like I said, it's just another part of it that's a little bit hard to explain. But as far as your fans, like even with us, like I sometimes get questions about like, oh, why didn't you get this posted at this time? And it's like, well, I have a day job. So it's a little bit different. What do you think about like your job is sort of the thing that your audience doesn't quite understand?
Oh, I don't think some people, it's probably a vocal minority. I think they underestimate the amount of time we're actually working. Like, I think there's a perception it's just like we go record and then we're done. So we work like 5 hours a week or something. And unfortunately, or fortunately, like it's a 7-day a week job because you got to constantly be on Instagram, on Twitter, promoting, and then just seeing what's going on. You have to be very online. You have to be very much online. If you're not paying attention to what's happening on there, then you're going to miss some stuff, especially when the bulk of our company's in its mid-30s.
Yeah, for sure. And this is like something that's like super niche as well. I cover like one team, and like I find that even I have to be like that sometimes. Like I run all the social for the show and everything, and we have a bigger site that I can kind of feed it through a little bit, but it's a little more time consuming than I think people realize, even for me and for you. I'm sure that's like ratcheted up. I don't even know how much, but as content creators, I feel like, you're always talking about the uncertain times here with coronavirus. I feel like I've had a mixed relationship a little bit with it because like I've been working from home since March at this point. That's really helped me, I think, grow the podcast in a different way. Do you like have that kind of same relationship with it? Is it a thing that you think you've benefited off of in any ways, or?
That's a great question. In some ways we have, because, we're doing those happy hours, those live streams that we weren't doing before. And the reason we did those is because, we're recording the podcast remotely anyway. Let's throw something else into there, and get some something on a video platform. And then that's really taken off. We're actually getting people wanting to sponsor that, which is hilarious to me. And people are sending in their gourmet meals for us to rank, which is just unbelievable. That's like been the most surprising thing about all this, is how good our audience is at preparing breakfast and dinner. But yeah, we've just been trying to maintain a schedule, a consistent schedule. Things have loosened up a little bit here in Texas, kind of going back and forth, but we're back in the office with some protocol, keeping masks on and whatnot. But at first it was tough because our listens were very hard to track because everyone's commutes were gone and their listening schedules completely changed. So we noticed people weren't necessarily listening right on Monday morning when we dropped an episode. They would listen to like 3 in a row on Wednesday instead. They were kind of binging the podcasts. So at first we were like, oh no, our listens are going to drop like 20%, and then everything evened out. So we've actually grown a little bit. So we've been very lucky, and I think it's because of mixing in the stuff like I mentioned, the live streams.
Yeah, and even I can relate to that a little bit because I have an hour commute. So like part of that for me would just be like throw you guys on and just like zone out sitting in traffic, or not zone out because that would be not good. But you know what I mean?
Dude, I would.
Yeah, it's not fun. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned like how you're growing a little bit. You mentioned your Too Much Dip podcast, the new sports pod that you guys are doing. Listen to it, both episodes so far, really, really good. Didn't know what I was expecting, but I'm really liking it. You want to dish on that a little bit here?
Yeah, sorry about the sizzle, the sound effect. I don't know if you made it that far.
No, I did. Actually, I saw you were tweeting about it with somebody, I think yesterday, and it was literally, I was hearing that as I was looking at Twitter, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I got a little cavalier with the sound effects. We use this thing called a Rodecaster, and it's what we run all our audio through, and it has like buttons. You can load up audio and do drops and whatnot. And anyway, I didn't check the levels properly, so sorry about that. But yeah, it's myself, Dylan, Micah, who used to produce our podcast back at Grand X. That's why I call him Producer Micah. And then our new addition is our buddy KJ. KJ is a guy out of Dallas who I became Twitter friends with a couple years ago. And he is really good voice to have on the mic. Our dynamic is working a lot better than I thought it would. I thought it would take us some time to develop chemistry, and like we came in day one. And Micah and KJ are like arguably the stars of the show. They've got a great dynamic forming there, and it's been fun. 2 episodes in, we're going to keep doing it. So check it out.
Yeah, having really not known those other 2 guys very well outside of just the live streams that you guys have been doing, they are doing a really good job. And the 4 of you, I think, have pretty awesome chemistry. It's a pretty good listen, so I'd encourage anyone on here to go check it out. Obviously, especially you guys are doing a lot of really in-depth stuff, breaking down the cover 2 defense and everything. It's just a really good sports listen. So, yeah.
We're the number 1 podcast for scheme breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta break down the I don't know who the Cowboys coordinator is, but I guess that's my transition there. Why don't you go ahead? Kellen Moore. Okay. Yeah, the offensive coordinator. Okay. I don't know who is it Marinelli?
It's Nolan now, right? Isn't that McCarthy's guy?
Okay.
I think that's his name.
I guess we'll talk about that at some point, but that's why I'm having you on here. You're a Cowboys fan at heart. Let's give me a little rundown here of your sports fandom, because I know Cowboys. I think you're into Baylor for college football, right?
Yeah, that's a T-shirt fandom. So my wife, she's a Baylor alum, and when we started dating was like the peak of Baylor. Unfortunately, it would come crumbling down due to a unbelievable. It might have been RG3's Heisman season, or maybe a couple years after that. It was when they were losing to UCF or Michigan State, one of those bowl games.
Just peak Bryles, I guess, right?
Peak Bryles, and then I watched that whole thing come crashing down, and I was just like, wow. And I live in Austin now, as you know, and I'll go to Texas games. I'm not a Texas fan. I'm one of those people where if I move to a town, like I lived in Oklahoma for law school, and I hated the Sooners at the time. I just couldn't. Their fans just got under my skin, and then that kind of happens with UT here. But a kid from my high school is actually about to be a freshman there, and he got recruited. He's a QB, Jaquindon Jackson. So if he ever gets the nod, I will pull for him. But yeah, Baylor T-shirt fan. I won't argue online about Baylor just because of my T-shirt fandom, but know that I am pulling for them. That's my Big 12 team. And then, yeah, I've just been a Dallas DFW sports fan my entire life.
So Mavs, Stars, Cowboys, obviously. I went to go click on your Twitter profile to DM you for this the other day, and I saw that picture holding the fish up was actually Luca. I thought that was you from afar.
I get that a lot.
Yeah, I take that however you want to take it.
I'm a 36-year-old man who has a 21-year-old who he'll never meet, who plays professional sports as his Avi on Twitter. So yeah, things are going well.
I turn 25 next month, and I still wear like jerseys and stuff on the regular, so it's nothing to be too ashamed of there.
Do you know how many pairs of shoes I've purchased since Luka became a Mav? Because
I've seen at least one of them, and I got to say I'm pretty impressed that you're pulling them off as well as you are.
I appreciate that, dude. I've never been a sneaker guy, but like he's made me one. So Jordan was smart to sign him.
Definitely. He's one of the young emerging superstars in the game, and he's got that little foreign element to him, which I like. I don't know if you like that.
Yeah,
definitely do.
Oh, I do.
So we're talking sports here, obviously sports podcast. I cover the Ravens, and it's like I said, a part-time job for you. Sports are kind of a part-time thing at this point as well. But I mean, getting you on here to talk about that, me and my co-host Spencer, we're big fans of the whole spectacle surrounding the Cowboys. I think we, more than anything, the fact that we're here in Baltimore, which is kind of like in the heart of NFC East territory a little bit. You got like Philly and New York to the northeast. DC is obviously right there. So, a lot of Skins fans, and I've trolled a lot of them in my lifetime rooting for the Cowboys. So how would you kind of sum up your relationship with the Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, so I was born in 84. So I was, 8 years old when they won their first Super Bowl. So 92, 93, then 95, right? And my dad was really, really into the team. I think, I'm not kidding, I think he cried when they fired Jimmy. And I'm dead serious. I'm almost positive he did. And I remember watching all those games and just being heartbroken when they lost, when it was, clear that the dynasty was over and they lost.
You remember those early Super Bowls then?
I genuinely, I do. A lot of people say they do. I really do. I can remember, the onside kick against the Steelers that they pulled at the beginning of the second half. And I think not sure which Super Bowl that was, but like I just have these memories of it. And we went to the parade. I think it was the first year, and there was a riot, and guys were getting their change yanked off because they were in the convertibles, and the crowd went crazy. Saw some fights, but yeah, dude, I love the team.
So many nuts.
Sorry, go ahead.
So many like nuts hanging off the back of the trucks or whatever you call that.
Yeah, just a lot of F-350s.
Oh yeah,
just carrying the boys.
Yeah, it's funny because for me, like I was born in '95, so like the Ravens like won their first in 2000, and I like remember the game, but like nothing really else about that season or anything. So they obviously got another one 8 years ago at this point. So that's kind of the one I more associate with. But that's fascinating that you remember all three of those. That's kind of an interesting life of a Cowboys fan. Most of the ones that I know don't have any like recollection of that. So that's pretty cool. But I guess we're coming up on I guess 95 was the last one, right? So we're coming up on the anniversary, 25 years of it. And like I said, we're in the middle of NFC East country here. Is that like the whole like Cowboys haven't got it done in forever? Is that a thing that you still let bother you at all, or is it just sort of whatever at this point?
Yeah, no, it definitely. There was a lot of hopeless years, like a lot. Like if you look at how many quarterbacks they went through in the early to mid 2000s, like up until they found Romo. We were running out Quincy Carter, Chad Hutchison. Vinny, was it Testaverde or Bernie Kosar? What? It was just
I think you had Testaverde. You had Anthony Wright, I think, for a couple games, which he was big in Baltimore for a little while too. So I was definitely keeping an eye on that.
I had high hopes for him.
He was like, I went back and we're doing like a rewatchable thing. Nobody else is doing that, where we go back and rewatch old games. And one of them was an Anthony Wright playoff game in like 2003, where they like lost to the Jeff Fisher Titans at home on a Morton Anderson or Gary Anderson kick from like 46 yards, which was kind of a tough watch. But Anthony Wright, a fun watch.
Yeah, for sure. So I was a Romo guy. I defended him. The same thing. I'm the same with Dak. I defend Dak. It's just been tough, man. And I'm so glad we got Garrett out of there. I'm sure you were going to ask me about that next, but like, he's a nice dude. He's a smart guy. I like him as a person. It's just, dude, what was he there for? He made it 9 years and like did absolutely nothing. And I'm not the type who's like, oh, we need a Super Bowl or bust. I just want a deep playoff run. Give me an NFC championship.
Right.
That's it. For now, I mean, just to show me that there's something to look forward to. And I honestly, after 3 games last season, I was ready to be like, you know what? This is the year. Like, I think we're going to go deep this year. Then would we go 8-8? Yeah, not great.
Yeah, that'll happen sometimes. But, man, Garrett, we are going to talk about him. But just quick side note, I don't know like how much you care or remember this, but he turned down the job here in Baltimore in, I think, 2000.
Yes.
Harbaugh came here, and then he stays with Dallas for 2010. So that's a big-time sliding doors moment around here for us. But I guess jumping back, we'll keep it as chronological as we can here. So you're rooting for teams with guys like Dion, Irvin, Emmitt Smith, a lot of fun guys, and there's been a lot of fun teams since then. Do you think like that's the most fun team, like that 95 era, or kind of has there been one that's really captured your heart since then?
Ooh. You say most fun.
Yeah, not necessarily most like they went on to like win a Super Bowl, because obviously that hasn't happened since then, but like just pure like drama of it all.
The Romo Marion Barber, the MB3 1-2 punch. That was a lot of fun because, before Marion Barber just ran himself into the ground, like that dude was so fun to watch because he ran with like reckless abandon. He was just pummeling dudes, truck sticking. And those are fun years. I mean, like early, Terrence Williams, a Baylor guy. Those Romo teams were really fun, man. Romo, when he was out there, he threw like 5 picks against the Bills one Monday night game, and then they still won on like a 60-yard field goal or like a 55-yarder. Those were ridiculous games, man. Romo always found a way to make it exciting.
We'll talk about him more, obviously, but absolutely one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch ever. Like, just so much fun. Like, I think he got way too much shit even at the time, and just an absolute fun watch. Hilarious commentator right now, and big Romo guy as well. But I guess speaking of fun, mid 90s, that's right around the time that Jerry sort of gets in the mix there. Do you have any memories of like Jerry coming into the picture at the time, or were you a little bit young to kind of fully understand his role at that point?
When he bought the team, I think it was 89. 88 or 89, right? So he bought the team and he fired Tom Landry. So Tom Landry, obviously a legend in football, just a legend in Dallas, fires Tom Landry, hires Jimmy. Jimmy, had coached at the U. He was just, the hotshot college guy, and he came in, made it work. He's always been a cartoon character, like the cartoon character of like an oil field guy, because he'll tell you about his wildcatting days, and that's how he made all his money. And he hasn't changed, man. It's absurd. But I know my dad did not like him. The joke around Dallas is like, when's Jerry the owner going to fire Jerry the GM? Because Jerry is the GM and will be as long as he controls the team, right? So he's gotten better. Their personnel department's sick. Shout out to intern Klein. But
Come on,
they're doing better. That was pretty good.
Thanks, man. I have a lot of practice listening to you, but yeah, I mean, it's just like I mentioned, like that's part of why I love the Cowboys so much. And I guess that's maybe not the best compliment as a fan, is that like I love watching your team, partially because like the whole spectacle around it. He is a cartoon character. He is absolutely hilarious. And like you mentioned, he gets in there, he fires Landry, he beefs with Jimmy. And then you get into the 2000s, and like you mentioned, it does like get a little bit rough at that point. Aikman, I think he got released and he had to retire because of injuries and stuff like that. What was your reaction to Aikman kind of leaving the scene there?
Very sad, man. Concussions, left the game. I think it came out that somebody tried to recruit him. He almost came back. I think he almost went to San Diego, if I'm not mistaken. He's kind of opened up on that the last couple of years. Aikman was one of my favorite players, one of my favorite Cowboys of all time, and when he was gone, then you knew it was going to be tough from there.
Definitely. It was probably a tough scene right around the time that he leaves, and I'm really starting to enjoy him in the booth here. I think him and Buck have great chemistry, so big Aikman fan as well. But I'm fascinated by, we touched on it a little bit, but that run in the early 2000s, they hired Parcells. What was your reaction to them bringing Parcells in? Because I feel like that's a guy you're going to have some takes on.
He's another guy. The media loved Parcells because he had so many quotes, and he's this New York guy, he's their Jersey guy, very blunt, no nonsense. My biggest memory from the Parcells years was like his relationship with T.O. when they brought T.O. in, and he refused to call him Terrell Owens or T.O. He called him the player. He would answer questions, and like he was trying to clearly get T.O. to check his ego, and that did not happen. But those were some fun years, man. I don't know why it didn't work, but I feel like if they had given it a few more years, I mean, they had success. They were right there in that Seahawks playoff game. That's the infamous fumbled snap. But
did Romo get the first down in that game?
Which play are you referring to?
So I think isn't that the thing with the kick where like Romo was on the snap, right? And
he was the holder.
He was the holder, and he drops it and he starts running. And I think he
starts running to the end zone.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, was it 4th and goal?
It was. Yeah, it was in the end. Yeah, he had like a path to be the hero and score and put up 6 and essentially win the game, and he got from behind. Unfortunately, that might work out.
That might define his career as a player a little bit, unfortunately. But yeah, I forget, for whatever reason, I've had a Cowboys fan. It's like, yeah, he got the first down, he got screwed. So I just had that in my mind for whatever reason. But as soon as you brought that up, I had to get your take there. But yeah, I don't know, like Parcells, he brings in like Bledsoe to be a starter at one point, and then that guy Drew Henson is like getting starts. I think I just remember that from the documentary. Just
former Michigan great.
Yeah, he was the guy in the Brady documentary that was like challenging him as like the two-way player or whatever. And goes to the NFL, doesn't really do too much. But yeah, you mentioned T.O. there. I mean, absolute pain in the ass for the Cowboys for however long, when he was with the 49ers and he's like dancing on the star, then he's with the Eagles. It's just a whole thing. What was kind of your reaction to his years there? I think like looking back on it and at the time, if you can remember.
I always liked him. I really did. Like I'm a big fan of these guys who have personality. There's so many athletes out there who give you sound bites and just talk, robot speak. They give you just like whatever they're trained to say, by the team. And I always appreciated his personality. Now, like, I don't know how it played in every locker room. Obviously in San Francisco and Philly, it didn't work out well. They got the Super Bowl with him. And he played awesome, and he was hurt too. I always wish he got. I don't know. I always feel like he gets a lot of the blame for those years, those Parcells years, and I think he actually balled out. I always enjoyed him, and he even cried for Romo after that playoff game. So you got to love that.
Yeah, that's an all-time clip. Probably overdone a little bit at this point, but still really hilarious. Tio, I mean, he was almost on the Ravens. He got traded here, and then he nixed it. Shout out to Antonio Brown with Buffalo because he didn't want to play with Kyle Bowler, which I can't blame him. But 2006, Romo comes in. Got to get your take on Romo. I mean, he goes on to have this great career in Dallas. What do you think the sentiment like on him was, if you can remember, like at the time when he's first getting his feet wet? Because I remember some of my friends and I'm a little bit younger than you, so I remember like in the 09, 10, a lot of my friends that were Cowboys fans, or the few that I have, weren't huge fans of him. What was kind of the reaction to him in Dallas, I guess, around that time?
He burst onto the scene. He was undrafted. Nobody had heard of him. Parcells had, he is responsible for the Romo years. Benched Bledsoe for Romo, and the rest is history. I think there's some guys in Dallas who would call him the Jedi, because he had this ability, because he wasn't super athletic. He actually had like kind of a dumpy build, but his pocket presence was crazy. He would get out of some situations. If you remember the Texans game where JJ Watt has a clear shot at him and he just spins out, then he just chunks it downfield for 6. He just had this knack for the spectacular, and also, unfortunately, colossal errors at crucial times. But I feel like the good outweighed the bad with Romo, and he should not get a lot of the blame for those years being very mediocre.
Yeah, it was like a knack for spectacular in both ways was kind of the way that I always described it. Like spectacular on one end that could always you're always kind of teetering with him, and they're always trailing by like 3 or whatever. And then you have that run where he's throwing interceptions late in games, which, you can say whatever you want about that. I don't think he was always totally at fault, like you've mentioned, but it leads into the 2010s. So we mentioned Garrett. I think he hired in 2010 as the interim. Dez is drafted that year. You're getting absolutely pissed right now, but Dez,
we're getting pissed on Luke, Jake. Sorry, man. This is getting. That's why I keep looking like that.
I see you looking,
checking my trees, make sure nothing's gonna blow into my house.
I hope you stay safe out there.
Yes, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, like as I was saying there, Jason Garrett hired in 2010, Dez drafted that year. Can you imagine a more hilarious personality pairing than those two?
It's hard to fathom anything more ridiculous than that.
We were talking about it because Ray Lewis visited with the Cowboys, I think, at one point. And then obviously the Garrett connection almost coming here. We were talking about that personality pairing. That would have been the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. But just quickly, I mean, Dez and Jason Garrett I always found that pretty funny. But
Dez is a guy that I continue to root for, but the Dez years, man. I don't know. I was bummed out when he tore whatever his Achilles when he got signed by the Saints, but I'm pulling for the guy. I don't know if it's going to happen, but he was fun, man. There was a time where I think he was on the Marion Barber teams too. I could be mistaken, but like there was a time where he was top 3 receiver in the league, right?
Yeah, definitely. I thought he was the best receiver in the league for like at least a 2-year stretch.
Yeah, I would agree.
And another guy who would have been drafted here, you guys jump up right in front of us, pick him. That was another heartbreaker, but it's a tough scene for Garrett early on there. He's 8-8. I wrote down 3 consecutive years to start it off. And around this time, like I want to get your take as a content guy. Like this is when internet culture is really developing into what it is now with like the memes and all that stuff. And it was just a terrible time for social media with like the NFL meme stuff, making jokes about the Cowboys. What was kind of your thoughts about the state of social media at the time, if you were really that plugged in, even as it relates to making fun of the Cowboys?
If you're a Cowboy fan, you have to have thick skin. You know, they're like the Lakers, the Knicks, whether they deserve to be or not. They're going to get all the primetime games. Everybody's going to be talking about them. If you watch any of the ESPN debate shows, that's going to be topic number one. What Jerry said, what Jerry's doing. At some point, you just get used to the spectacle. It's like professional wrestling. You're like, whatever. I got onto Twitter, I think 2009. I guess that's fairly early, maybe 2010. But, you know, I was the guy who, if I saw Cowboy slander on the timeline for a time, I was clapping back at like the sports radio hosts that I was listening to their shows. I was like, hey, that's not fair. You're not considering secondary, blah, blah, blah. I can remember like really getting affected by it because it was such a big part of my life and I wanted them to be so good. But, man, the memes, you can't be mad at the memes, dude. Memes are going to meme.
Exactly. I mean, and you're an absolute meme god, right? So, I mean, got to fall to you on that. But it changes a little bit in 2014. So that was a fun year for them. That was DeMarco Murray carrying the rock, and they go 12-4.
DeMarco Murray.
They win a playoff game, finally. They go on to lose to the Packers in the Dez didn't catch it game. I remember that watching that very vividly. But they're a big favorite in those playoffs. Like, were you starting to think Super Bowl at that point? Because I'm a fan personally that doesn't really do that a whole lot. Was that kind of what you were thinking that year?
That was their best team, I think, since the 90s. I don't think it's close. DeMarco was a beast, man, for a while there. That was Dez in his prime. That Packer game, I remember I was watching it right before I was leaving Lubbock for Austin. And I had like a 7-hour drive from Lubbock to Austin just after that, and it was just a nightmare. It was so brutal.
Oh God, I can relate. We've had some of our fair share of losses like that with the Edelman double pass and everything. The Cundiff miss against the Patriots too. I mean, it's a tough scene in the playoffs sometimes, but it goes off the rails. Romo gets injured the next year in 2015. Drafting Zeke at 4th overall, by the way, a hilarious Jerry visual, just sitting up in the draft room, just grinning ear to ear when they get Zeke. They get Dak in the 4th round. And I'm guessing you were pumped about Zeke, but I do want to get your sort of thoughts on Dak at the time, like coming out of college. I know you're a little more plugged in on college than somebody like me would be up here in the Mid-Atlantic, but what was your thoughts on Dak coming out of Mississippi State?
Well, let me correct you first. I was not that pumped about Zeke. I'm not a big fan of taking a running back that high, even though Zeke is such a beast. Like,
yeah,
wasn't Goff was available? There's a number of quarterbacks.
I think he went first. I think it was Goff Wentz 1-2 that year.
Goff Wentz. Okay, yeah. I feel like that there were some players available.
Paxton Lynch was the 3rd guy, and it was like everyone.
Well, that's everybody says. So apparently he was higher on their board than Dak. They were going to trade up to get Lynch,
right?
To get Paxton Lynch, which, like, I mean, that would have been an awful move. But when we drafted Dak, I watched a little bit of Mississippi State. Just like if you're a college football fan, you follow the SEC, right? You at least have to know what everybody's doing, especially a team like Mississippi State that's making noise.
And Dak was hard to miss too. He was a really good player there.
He was a really good player. I mean, one of their most successful quarterbacks, if not their most successful, unless I'm missing somebody. Who am I missing? Brett Favre. Was Favre a Mississippi State guy? Where'd Favre go to school?
He was at another Mississippi school, Mississippi Southern or something, maybe?
Southern Miss. I'm screwing that up. Sorry. But, yeah, I didn't know much about him. I knew he was a good kid, but I did know he got jumped on spring break. I don't know if you saw that, that video.
That's quite a visual.
Yeah, messed up, dude. But, yeah, I was happy. You don't think when they take a quarterback in the 4th round, you're like, and your quarterback is Tony Romo, you're not thinking, oh, this will be, I'm going to see this guy for 16 games next season. But lo and behold.
And then you go to LA the first year the Rams are in LA in that preseason game, that first one, he's just absolutely balling out. I remember watching that and being like, holy shit, this guy is going to be like, and I usually don't overreact to preseason games, but like that was a hell of a performance.
That was my take. I was just like, okay, cool. Good to see. I mean, like we've got a guy now, or we had a guy, Cooper Rush was our backup. And like, he's never done anything in the preseason. preseason, it can give you a little glimpse. And yeah, I remember when Dak was going off in that game, I was just like, okay. I'm glad that first of all, I'm glad I'm watching a preseason game, which is something no one's ever said.
You're like the Dolphins guy gif that you're always tweeting out.
Pretty much, yes.
But yeah, so he has that big game. He jumps in for Romo that year, 2016, 13-3. He wins Rookie of the Year. I mean, I guess you're thinking you're probably pretty much set at that point. Another, hate to bring it up, but another heartbreaking loss to the Packers. Skip Bayless freaking out. That Mason Crosby kick not going in. Allegedly.
Yeah, that was tough. Dude, 13-3, that's so crazy, man. I always forget how good that team was. It was so weird, too, because Romo was healthy toward the end of the season, and it was awkward because, Jerry loves his players. He loves Romo. He signed him to that big deal. For Jerry not to force Garrett to make the switch, I think says a lot about Jerry, that he kind of has evolved. And because, Romo, I mean, he loves the guy. Jerry has his guys, and he wants to see them play.
Romo did that weird, concession press conference, where he walked out there and he just, read from a piece of paper, conceding the starting job to Dak.
No one asked for that. What was that? And then he did that video, that retirement video from his, personal gym. And he was listening. I don't know what song was playing in the background.
He was like, yeah, I'm just going to go listen to Bout.
All right. Thanks, Tony. He was lifting with a sleeveless t-shirt on. It's just weird.
Nobody has looked that sad when they're lifting.
No, dude. No gains were realized that day.
Yeah, no gains. I was going to say, except maybe Dorn. But, I mean, it's been a little bit of an up and down. It's been a little bit of an up and down time since then. 2 years flirting pretty much around 500. I think you've had a 9-7 in there. Playoff win also in the mix. You beat the Seahawks at home, right?
Yeah, that was weird. That was the game. That was the game of Russell Wilson. They refused to let Russell Wilson be Russell Wilson. It was very strange. I don't know what the Seahawks were doing. The Seahawks were probably a better team. But yeah, I forgot. They won that. Then who did they lose to next round?
Rams, I think. That was the year the Rams went to the Super Bowl.
Yes. The Rams, Aaron Donald. Yeah, that was tough. We went on the road, and we never had a chance.
I'm not much of a bettor. I think I put money on the Cowboys to win that Rams game. So maybe I've blocked that whole playoff run out of my memory. But what would you how would you briefly sum up your feelings on the first couple of years of Dak?
Underrated by Cowboy fans. Had his best individual year last year. He was really good, even though they went 8-8. I don't think you can put that on him. He had some growing pains, but dude, I mean, he's the guy. Pay the man. I'm sure you're going to ask me about it, but Cowboys, I think, have kind of botched this contract deal. Now it's just a weird deal, and it's red meat for the NFL media, especially the Dallas media. We're still talking about the franchise tag, and it's just a pain in the ass. I don't know. I've got friends who don't. They don't like him. They'll anytime he makes a mistake, it goes in the group text, and I'm always like, what do you want to do? What's your alternative? Who are we going to bring up? We're going to, get Kellen Moore out of his coordinator role, bring him back out there. I don't know what they want. So I'm
100% in agreement with you there in all seriousness. I think Dak is really, really good, very accurate, mobile, pretty much everything you want in a quarterback. And it is kind of weird seeing the sentiment of people that kind of want to tear him down a little bit, maybe because he wasn't that high pedigree first round pick or whatever. But yeah, I'm definitely with you in that I think they need to lock him up quickly. But
dude, and he is so durable. He's built, man.
He reminds me of Steve McNair a little bit, just the way that he plays, kind of how durable he is. I know Steve had some injuries, but I think that's a pretty good comparison.
The great Steve McNair, one of my favorite players growing up. Yeah, dude, that's a good comp. And he's built. Cam's obviously built a little bigger, but Dak's got that body type. I'm excited for what the offense is going to look like under McCarthy and Kellen Moore. I'm hoping they can make him a little bit more mobile, because they usually have success when they're not afraid to let him take it. But yeah, I've got high hopes.
Definitely. I think it's going to be fun. I mean, you have this big off season where you have, pretty much the best draft of probably every team. I'm not like a huge draft expert, but like that's kind of what seems to be the consensus. And I guess we're going to get to all that, but quickly, I do have to ask the whole Garrett thing. We talked about it. Like he finally gets fired. What was how did you like process the way that whole thing played out? Because it was very bizarre, I thought.
You knew it was going to happen, and Jerry, he loves his guys. He loves Jason. Like, their families are hanging out together and whatnot. And the way he dragged it out, it was just so uncomfortable, and it dominated sports talk radio around here. And I was just, it was brutal, man. And the thought was, it's like, we're going to miss out on some of these coaches they're getting snagged up. I think Matt Rule, who I was a big fan of, I was holding out hopes. I didn't want him to leave Baylor, but I was thinking, if he's going to go somewhere, I'd love for him to come to Dallas. And then he ends up in Carolina. Thank God it wasn't New York. But yeah, I was just like, dude, get it over with. Let's move on to the next one. Like, dude, you don't owe this guy anything. You paid him. You kept him around for almost a decade of mediocrity.
It was like he was on like life support or something. I was following the news cycle, and I was checking Jane Slater's timeline every day. Like, what is going on with this? And it played out very weird. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the names there. Sounds like you're pretty happy with the McCarthy hire. That to me is one where, is that a thing where you were all in on it like right from day one, or have you kind of sold yourself on it over time as a fan?
No. It honestly, it did not move the needle for me at first. It was like, I was hoping for, I don't know who I was hoping for. I mentioned Rule. There were some other college names tossed around. There was the Lincoln Riley. Is Lincoln Riley going to leave OU? Bob Stoops was coaching the Renegades, the XFL team in Dallas, and people were like, "Oh, is he going to pivot over to the Cowboys?" And like, I convinced myself that that's what we should do, some kind of out of the box move. And so when they hired McCarthy, I was just like, okay, he obviously has success in the playoffs against us. He's done really well. He's developed quarterbacks. He helped Aaron Rodgers develop. The more I hear like the talking heads and the sports guys I listen to on the ticket in Dallas, like they've talked me into it, and they've given me, the numbers and like what he did with Aaron Rodgers and why his scheme is going to be great for us and how much quarterbacks grow under his system. I'm now all in. So I'm very I'm easily impressionable.
That's just what you do as a fan every time, though. Like every time you have like a draft pick that you're kind of like, I don't know like what to think here. Eventually you just find a way to sell yourself on it. But I mean, like with his resume and everything, it's a safe hire, but that's not always a bad thing. You mentioned like the guys that you're listening to. You a big Bob Sturm guy?
Oh, the Sturminator.
Yeah.
I am, man. I'm a big Sturm fan. He's a football genius.
I've only heard him on the trap draw, so shout out to NLU. But yeah, I just had to.
Oh, he was on the trap draw, yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty entertaining guy. I thought he really impressed me over 40 minutes or whatever. So you get to have him in the local airwaves. That's got to be nice. But I guess we've got all the takes on McCarthy and everything out of the way. What is your thoughts on the draft class, CeeDee Lamb, everything? It's obviously a very exciting haul. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a curse, though. Everyone talking about the exciting draft class and everything. Where's your head at with all that?
Ecstatic. Like, this is the most fun I've had doing a Cowboys draft. Like, the fact that he was there. So, you kind of, you have like your players, and I had talked myself into, who did I think? I wanted them to take one of the kids from Baylor.
Mims?
Mims. I want him to take Mims in like the second, because I was like, well, we need a receiver. Let's get Mims in the second. And then, you get to the 8th or 9th pick, and you're like, how is CeeDee Lamb still there? Like, I think most people, it was either him or the kid from Alabama, right? 1 and 2, like Ruggs, best receiver in the draft.
Yeah, Judy and Ruggs, I think, were the two guys.
Yeah, and then you saw the Raiders reach for is it Ruggs? Ruggs is
he's the speedster. Yeah, he was kind of the second guy. Yeah, he was generally, I think everyone thought he was sort of second fiddle to Judy a little bit. They're both pretty good in their own right, but Judy winds up going behind him. Lamb is falling. As a Ravens fan, I'm like, get the hell up and get CeeDee Lamb? Like, what are we doing here? But
so that's what I was worried about, somebody trading up to get him, because I was listening to Bob Sturm, who's getting a lot of love on this. I was listening to the tickets draft show, and they're like, guys, CeeDee Lamb is still there, and you're just like, oh my God, is this going to happen? Because I watched a lot of CeeDee Lamb being a Big 12 guy, and the dude is absurd. He is so sick. And when they got him, I was pumped. And then when they got the DB out of Bama, was it Trevon Diggs, the next round, I was like, oh my God, we just filled 2 needs, and that's amazing.
Trevon Diggs from right down the road here. He's brothers with Stephon Diggs.
Yes, shout out.
So there you go. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're pretty pumped about the draft class. I would be too. I guess last sort of mainstream question before we get you out of here. What do you think is going to happen with Dak? Let's get a little prediction here.
Oh, he will sign it. He will play this year under the franchise tag. They will sign him to a deal 4 years. I think they'll agree to that. I think he's going to have a good year, assuming we have like a full season. I'm not going to be negative about it. I'm just going to assume we're going to have a full season. I think you're going to see him explode under Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore. And I think he's going to get paid. I don't know if he's going to get. I think I saw somebody say that he's going to. You know how it is with the cap and like Mahomes' contract. What it'll look like, is Dak going to actually get a bigger deal than Mahomes just got, just because that's the way it works. I wouldn't be surprised, man. Jerry, you saw what he paid Romo. He's going to pay Dak. I think they kind of botched it, and they probably know it, and they probably wish they hadn't paid Zeke all that money. I know I do.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird situation where Zeke is probably a big part of the offense, but going ahead and paying him all that money right before you have to pay Dak is a little bit of a tough pill to swallow as a fan. But yeah, that Mahomes deal, man, that kind of throws a wrench in a lot of different things. Like, we've got a young quarterback here that's probably going to have his deal up eventually. How does that affect that? And then figures are so ridiculous. Even the guaranteed money not being as much as like the reported deals or whatever, the guaranteed money was a whole lot. So seeing how that's going to affect like Watson and all these other young guys is pretty compelling.
Let me ask you this. How much of the blame is Lamar shouldering for the Titans loss, the playoff loss?
I think probably a little bit less than the national media would say. He definitely came out, I would say, unprepared. But if you go back and watch the tape, huge all-22 guy, I'm sure you are too, you'll notice that he threw the ball pretty well. And the running game just kind of wasn't there. And I don't know how much you're into like Warren Sharp, who's breaking down a lot of these, analytics and numbers and stuff. The way that he paints the picture, it's that they kind of just didn't show up to play, and that, 8-9 times out of 10, they're in that game, and the Titans just kind of dominated them. And I tend to agree. Like, I was pretty pissed at the time, but it's just one of those things, like I mentioned, where you just ultimately rationalize it and move on.
Yeah, I think about, like, I compare that to how the Dallas media or media as a whole would treat like a Cowboy team that went in there and laid an egg against a team they should have beat when, they've got the MVP of the league at the helm. But I really love the guy. He's my favorite. Him and Mahomes are my favorite players to watch. I got to see a lot of Mahomes Big 12 action. He was on some really, really bad Texas Tech teams that he just made really fun to watch.
Hearing like 53 to like 49 or whatever.
Dude, like throwing for 600 yards against Baylor. And he had I feel like every game he had like a knee brace on, like a shoulder brace. He was always jacked up because they had no line. It was absurd.
And he had that game against like Baker Mayfield where it's like 60 to like whatever, 50 points. And yeah, it's just, I was a huge Mahomes guy too. Obviously, like not catching a ton of, Tech football on TV, but going back and watching him, I remember Chris Sims was big on him leading up to that draft. He was like one of the only national voices that was. So I went back and watched, and I was like, damn, this guy is like pretty legit. Getting to a point now where I'm not hating him, but like Chiefs fans coming at Lamar and like the Ravens, it's starting to develop into a little bit of a rivalry. I don't know how much you've noticed that down in the Texas area, but it's kind of starting to get to that point where I don't want to be rooting against Mahomes, but I feel like I'm going to have to start pretty soon.
Yeah, I can relate. My comp for me is as a Mavericks guy, a Luka guy, obviously, is the Trae Young stands, the Atlanta Hawk fans who, those are the two that'll always be connected. And for you, it'll be Mahomes and Lamar. Obviously, you had that Chiefs blog come out and say that they're going to boycott what's the ranking that just came out?
The fucking NFL top 100 thing. Like Lamar like gets the top rank or whatever. And like I've always maintained pretty much that I don't really care about the rankings at all. I think it's just like a cool thing. You get some respect from like your peers or whatever. Mahomes probably should have been ranked ahead of him, like rationally, but it just didn't happen. Like the players voted one way, it happened. And like
the fact that
they're kind of getting a little insufferable. Like I hate to like, and I usually don't like to be like rivalry guy, like, stirring shit up. I don't really do that, but like, man, it's getting to a boiling point.
Well, yeah. When I can't remember what the if it's like an SB Nation blog or which one, whatever one it was like they came out and they're like, guys, we're not going to cover this.
Yeah, they were. We're SB Nation too. So like I noticed that like they tweeted it, and like I went microvi actually with a little response to it. So it's turning into a fun rivalry.
Oh, nice.
Some good games. Some good games are going to be coming out of it here.
They're gonna take their ball and go home, man. You just won a Super Bowl, dude.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're starting to turn into Patriots fans a little bit. Like you guys just won a Super Bowl. Mahomes is like he's got an MVP in his pocket. Noted Ferrari owner, I put in the tweet. Noted MLB team owner. I think we can probably relax a little bit with him not getting the NFL top 100 nod.
Yeah, I don't know if they were as mad about Lamar being one or if they because Russ was ranked above him too.
Well, yeah, it's that too, but like they specifically are not big on the whole Lamar thing. Like anything positive that you see like tweeted or like Bleacher Report will do their like stupid like things with like a quote box or whatever talking about how great Lamar is, and you'll see all these Chiefs fans in there like he's a running back or whatever, like that's still going on. So it's a whole thing. I don't mean to bore you with all that, but it's
it's fine, man. I pull for Lamar. I pull for the guys that overcome the draft gurus who like to diminish their talents because of preconceived notions, right? How many people wanted him to he's gonna have to switch positions, he's not a quarterback. And it's like, well, actually he is, and he's very good. He's at worst a top 3 quarterback in the league. So,
and at that point I'm kind of even getting past like complaining about that too much because that was what it was. It's over now. And like the people that really genuinely tear him down are probably just trolling at this point. It's pretty weird. Where are you at with like Baker right now? Because I'm sure he's a guy that's been more in your life than like somebody like me at this point. I mean, Baker's very much in my life now, but when he was like at Oklahoma and doing his whole thing, where do you come down on Baker?
He's controversial, right? I am pulling for him. I like his edginess. I know it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And last year was definitely a step back, but I think he's going to bounce back nice this year. There's a lot of personalities on that team, man. He's got a sick running game too. I mean, it's just, I think if they could get it right. Yeah. I'm pulling for him, man. I'm hoping he's got everything together. He looked like, towards the end of the year, he looked like shit in some of those press conferences, dude. I don't know if he was out of shape or what, but I think he'll be more focused this year. He's a Lake Travis guy, which is a suburb of Austin here. So there's a lot of, even though he's a Sooner, a lot of Baker stands that I'm friends with.
Yeah, he's a guy where I think I was super into the whole like edginess and stuff when I was in college. I graduated in 2017, so 2.5 years ago. Winter graduate, not a big deal. I was super into that whole bravado persona that he had at Oklahoma. I loved it. Even when he went to the Browns right away, he was on Hard Knocks. I was like, this guy's pretty likable. And as I've sort of grown up a little bit, like I said, I'm starting to get into my mid-20s. I'm like, all right, dude, you're kind of doing a little bit too much sometimes. But this past year, he really ran through the ringer, and he's kind of not doing nearly as much media this offseason. He's done some stuff, for the social justice stuff that I didn't necessarily expect to come out of him that I was pretty impressed by. So, I'm rooting for him on a personal level. I hope the Browns obviously don't become any sort of real rival to the Ravens. They kind of haven't been in my lifetime. So kind of hoping to keep that going. But, we'll see what happens. They've got a really talented team. I think they should do well this year.
Which team in the AFC worries you the most?
I mean,
we'll say the Chiefs, obvious answer, but who besides the Chiefs are a threat?
It's weird, man. Like the Browns kind of worry me. Like they've got a good roster. But I think Baker is ripe for a little bit of a turnaround. That Stefanski guy, he runs an interesting offense who they just hired. They just need a little bit of stability. I think they could be good. Looking at some of the other teams, like I feel like the Pats are just going to go 10-6 with Cam Newton, and they're probably going to make a little bit of noise in the playoffs. Steelers, maybe they'll turn around. Big Ben is kind of getting a little bit older, but I just out of virtue of rooting against them my whole life and having my heart ripped out by them however many times, I can't totally count them out. But obviously, it's just sort of the Chiefs. I see the Ravens as firmly that number 2, and then Browns are going to be in the mix. And Titans maybe. Tannehill doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Interested. Vrabel, yeah, I'm a big Vrabel guy. And Derrick Henry, obviously, he made me eat some words last January, whatever it was. So, Titans, Texans. I feel like the Texans are going to go 11-5 and crash out. Oh, the Bills, actually. I'm pretty worried about the Bills.
Yeah. Bills are interesting. Texans, man, I got a lot of Texans friends, Texans fan friends, and Bill O'Brien, dude. I think Bill O'Brien, as long as that dude's there, man, it's tough because they've got Deshaun, who's obviously a superstar, but boy, I don't know about Bill O'Brien as your GM.
Yeah, I think he's a good enough coach, but as a GM, it's like, what are we doing here? It's kind of like the Jerry thing, but on a lower level, I guess.
Yeah, it honestly doesn't make any sense. It's like, I get why Jerry wants to be the football man, right? He owns the team. Cool, you do it. Bill O'Brien, why put so much trust in him? Like, when has he ever been a personnel guy? I mean, maybe he has been. I just don't know it. But
they got in a weird spot. They had, I think Rick Smith was their GM, and then his wife had some health stuff, so he had to step away. And maybe O'Brien just got put in that role as like an interim guy, and he just hung on to it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably the case. But yeah, AFC's gonna be fun this year.
It is. I think even like the Jaguars, like if Minshew actually kind of delivers on some of that promise that he showed last year, a lot of people seem to like him. They got a good roster too.
Yeah. You said the Pats, but dude, they've had like 6 dudes, right, who are going to opt out, like half their defense almost. Right?
Yeah, it's some big master plan by Belichick, apparently, is what people are saying.
I'm in on that. I'm in on the Belichick conspiracy. I'm rooting for Cam, though. I got to say, like, that's a dude I just pull for, and as much as I don't want to wish good things upon the Patriots, I do want Cam to be successful. Sorry, Boston.
Yeah, I know. I'm in the same way where even with the Patriots, like I always kind of liked Brady on a personal level. I think Belichick is hilarious. He's from around here too, so I have a little bit of connective tissue with Belichick. It's just Pat's fans are kind of insufferable. And when they came here for that, what was it, like Sunday night game last year, and we kind of blew them out a little bit. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of their fans sitting around me, and that was a good time. But I don't know, man. With all those opt-outs, it is weird. They've had a couple players on the Ravens opt out. Not really any big names, but like you mentioned, like Chung is kind of a player for the Pats. Some of those other guys were players. I think Hightower even.
Hightower, yeah.
Yeah, so those are some players for sure. But I just feel like if anyone's just going to throw together a roster with like Band-Aids and bubble gum and just like win 10 games.
Dude, they're the damn Spurs. They're the Spurs of the NFL, man. They just find these guys, they plug them in, and it works, and it drives us nuts.
Definitely. Especially me, man. Let me tell you. But taking up almost an hour of your time here. Before I get you out of here, I do want to play a quick game with you. It's a game you're familiar with. Stand, mute, cancel. Do you know this game?
I'm familiar, yeah.
So Jerry Jones's famous saying, stand, mute, cancel. Quote, "We don't need to circumcise that mosquito," in reference to belaboring a topic. Quote, "Lower than a crippled cricket's ass," in reference to how low he felt after Des Bryant's injuries. Quote, "I've been here when it was glory hole days, and I've been here when it wasn't. Having said that, I want me some glory hole." No context.
I stand the glory hole. Glory hole is the all-time greatest Jerry quote of all time. I honestly don't remember the what was it? Lower than a crippled cricket's ass?
Cricket's ass. I think I canceled that because it's too hard to say. It's too much. I can imagine him saying it, but I can't pull that off.
It's like we're doing the alliteration thing. Where are you going with this? And then I'm going to cancel that one, and I'm going to mute. What was the other one? I know I'm muting it.
Let me pull it up. I don't even remember. So lower than a crippled cricket's ass, and then stand. Okay, so we stand glory hole.
Yes.
Cancel lower than a crippled cricket's ass, and we're going to be muting. We don't need to circumcise that mosquito.
Yeah, that one is.
I feel like he said that a couple times.
Yeah, dude. That's what I'm saying about Jerry, dude. It's you gotta like the guy. He's
He's a showman.
a third human. I mean, there's dudes in their little trailers in like West Texas right now, their feet up on a desk trying to close a deal that are saying these things. So it's so funny. It's just such oil field guy talk.
And it's something that you can definitely relate to. And for me, it's just like the most foreign thing ever. So like when I like see something like that, it is just the absolute best. And like, God, I love Jerry so much. Like the pictures of him with some of the younger women and some of the the bus and like the boat and all that shit. I love it.
The Bravo Eugenia, the yacht.
You guys were talking about that the other day, right?
Yeah. It's a yacht that I'll never be on.
Don't say that.
I'm gonna go ahead and say I'll probably never be on the yacht. That's okay. I'd love to get on the bus one day.
Well, if you guys get big enough, like look at like Barstool, like they're partnering with the Patriots. You guys just got to get to that level, and then Jerry's going to be parading you around in the Jerry bus, drinking Johnny Walker Blue, doing whatever.
Dude, he does love him some Johnny Walker Blue, doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
I might. You know what? It's weekend of Dave. My wife's out of town, so I'm here with Randy at home by myself. I might go pick up a little Johnny Walker Blue. That's expensive though, right? They always get the regular Johnny Walker.
I was gonna say it is payday. I mean, just you and the Rand Man just crushing some Johnny Walker, dropping into Verdansk tonight. Sounds like a good time.
Oh, I will. You can absolutely catch me in Verdansk tonight.
Oh yeah, we gotta play together sometime. I haven't played a ton of COD recently, but I am an Xbox guy.
Hit me on Fajita Boy Swag.
Will do. Really appreciate your time, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is good, man. I appreciate it. Is this going out today?
Probably Monday, I think. So I'll be tweeting everything and tagging you in it and everything. And yeah, good time.
Cool, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, before you get out of here, why don't you plug yourself? Let the listeners know where they can find you and all your stuff.
All right, check us out, Washed Media. You can check out our podcast, Circling Back. Our sports podcast is Too Much Dip. If you liked my takes, my super generic sports takes, there's more of those on Too Much Dip. Just check. We got Sunday Scaries Pod, So Many Screens, Club Cool, The Mail-In. We've got a whole arsenal of content, and you can find me on Instagram at DC Ruff, on Twitter and Snap at DCarterRuff. And I just now realized it said at David Ruff on LinkedIn under me the entire time. I don't know why.
I wanted to say something, but I thought you were just doing a bit.
I mean, it's like a month ago, and I guess I just never changed it. So it's just been an ongoing bit, which are always the best. So
you're just man. I love it.
Yep, I really am.
But yeah, really appreciate it. I'm gonna clean up all this Bud Light cans and cigarettes around me, and we'll get out of here. Okay.
Oh, I love it, dude. It's fun microdosing shrooms with you.
Yeah, dude, it was great. Have a good one.
All right, thanks, man.
Peace.